It's the opening day of this 48th season on the EBERSPA Luge World Cup. We're in Lillehammer, Norway, getting set for race number 2 of the day, the women's singles competition. Hi again, everyone. I'm Tim Singer. We come off of the heels just moments ago, an exciting finish to the women's doubles event won by the United States ahead of Germany and Latvia. Now we have a full field of 30 women in the first women's singles competition of this pre-Olympic season 24-25. It's clearing up a little bit in the distance. It's getting a little warmer here in this Lillehammer track. And now to tell us a little bit more about the conditions, the track, and today's competition, I'm pleased to introduce from Team Ireland, the sliding doctor, Elsa Desmond. Elsa, welcome back. Always great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me back, Tim. Yes, it is going to be a fantastic season as we go towards the Olympics in 2026 coming up. We're here in Lillehammer today. We've had some mixed conditions for training. We've had some really, really cold, fast ice, and we've also had some warmer days. So it's going to be interesting to see how these athletes handle this track. They have the advantage of yesterday. The ice was very similar to today. So from Nations Cup to World Cup, there hasn't been a huge number of changes as we come into this Lillehammer track. First time we've slid here in a World Cup since 2019. So for lots of these athletes, particularly the younger ones, they won't have done a World Cup here before. So it will be a great experience for them.
And our drone takes us down to the lower start around curve 4 in this track at Hunderfossen. And to give us a bird's eye view of the trip from top to bottom, Elsa, tell us what the challenges are.
So this first corner, very easy to skid through this first corner. It's quite a tricky entrance. Then coming into 5, this is quite a flat section at the top of the track. Coming into the labyrinth, they're really going to want to build speed here in this top section, stay nice and relaxed as they're building the speed coming towards curve 9, curve 10 here. As we come into curve 10, this is where we're approaching the tricky section of the track. They really need to get these entrances and exits right. Curve 12, 13, as we're coming up here, is a crucial transition. They need to get onto curve 13 nice and early and avoid looping in this big curve 13. Coming into the straight, we might see people hitting down this straight if they make mistakes. And then coming into these big corners at the bottom, lots of time to be lost here and lots of time to be gained.
Uphill finish. We will possibly expect a track record. We saw it earlier today in the doubles competition. Now we're about to see this start list as the athletes, including the world champion Lisa Schulte, are getting ready up at the top. But let's take a moment to talk about the new order for the start. We used to have to wait to all of the best to go last, but they've changed things up this year.
Yeah, so with the weather getting warmer, we've seen some, obviously with global changes in weather, we've seen some warm track conditions last season, and so they decided to make some changes to this start order. So where it used to be the slowest first, fastest last, we're now seeing that the top 5 athletes from the Nations Cup, that's yesterday's qualifying race, will be the first 5 athletes to go. We will then see the seeded group, so that's the top 12 seed athletes, they will then go next, and then the remainder of the athletes that have qualified from the Nations Cup will then go behind the seeded group from fastest to slowest. So the slowest athlete is now starting last, and it's making that Nations Cup so important as you fight for those top 5 spots to get the good ice on the first run. And
we had a very small field in women's doubles, but now with the full field of 30, we won't see them all in run number 2.
No, so there's a larger field than 30 here, so it was a very tough competition yesterday within the Nations Cup. 7 athletes not making it through into today's World Cup, myself being one of them. And then there's a full field today of 30 in the first run, and then 20 athletes, the top 20, will make it through into that second run, with the lower 10 athletes not getting that second run.
That will add a really interesting dynamic, because we've seen some of the great sliders have a problem in run number 1, maybe end up in 23rd, 24th place, but still have the opportunity to slide into the top 12, top 10 maybe even in run number 2. That's not going to happen anymore. You out of the top 20, you're out of the race.
Absolutely. Every run here is now going to count. You need to put down a good time every run. You can't make it up on the second run anymore.
20-year-old Melina Fischer opens things up here in women's luge and the always strong German program. I don't know a lot about Melina, but I can tell you that if she's a young German, they have a lot of faith in her.
So she's from the Altenburg team within the Germans. So Altenburg is her home track. She's in her second year, I believe, on the senior circuit. One of the youngest athletes that we're seeing here racing today. It's fantastic to her to get these opportunities to compete on this world level at such a young age.
World Cup season underway in women's singles luge. On course, Melina Fischler.
Getting that really important cut into curve 4. They're going to want to be on the right side of that start ramp to cut in to get that nice entrance into curve 4.
She did race 5 times last year on the World Cup. Her best result, not surprisingly, on her home track in Saxony, where she had a 6th in Altenburg.
And I believe she won the Nations Cup.
She may have. I don't keep all of those stats there, but some of our viewers might know this. If you're watching, welcome to our YouTube channel. We welcome your comments, your questions, and even your criticisms.
Just nearly tapping her feet down there, but did well to keep them up in that tricky section out of 13. A little bit of looping in 15. But overall, a really solid run there for her.
47.436 to get things started. Patrick Leitner, the new head coach of Team Deutschland. He was the man on the left there. Felix Lach, and was that Max as well? There to greet the young German woman.
And only about 1/10 off the track record, I believe, so I can expect that track record to fall today for sure. We have really nice ice conditions, and I think it's going to be a fast day. She just working a little bit there to stay off that left wall, did well to keep her feet up as she was coming towards curve 14.
Fischer into the early lead. Plenty of time now with 29 sleds to watch come down. Here's the first of the Südtirolians, Nina Zugler. Her father, the legendary Armin, is helping, of course, run this program when he's not also serving on the FIL executive board. Armin is at this race.
Really nice position there. You can see she's really pressing that head back, trying to build the speed in this top section. Obviously very exciting for the Italians with their home track, with a new track being built in Italy as we speak. I believe they are ahead of schedule as they work towards those 2026 Olympics and getting us out to Italy next season for homologation and testing.
This is how ahead of schedule they were at a meeting last night. They were expecting to be 25% done on this date. They're 27% done.
Excellent. So you saw she went a little bit late into 13 there, looped her curve 13, was a little bit high at the end, but she worked really hard and did nice to stay off that wall. But those mistakes costing her time as she falls back.
There's Armin. Nina, a 15th place finisher in her first Olympics at the age of 20 several years ago. She's through with a pretty clean run, through and down, as my friend Bree would say.
Absolutely. So this is her curve 10, 11 here, and you can just see she's high on the end of 13. She looped it a little bit, but she did really well to stay off that wall and get that nice transition into 14. And she's got the red button.
That was the red. It looked yellow, but there is no yellow. So she will have the check there in run number 1 as we have the first of 3 Canadians in today's women's field. Former doubles competitor. We've seen a lot of singles change to doubles. This was a doubles competitor who did both, really, and now is concentrating on singles. 21-year-old Caitlin Nash finished on the podium yesterday in the Nations Cup. She's out of Whistler.
Quite a small team that Canada have brought with them this year. They've got women and they've got a men's double. We're not seeing any of them singles men or women's doubles at this point in the season, but I'm not sure if we'll get them later in the season, obviously, as they're trying to build.
I am under the impression they are trying to at least develop a full field for the World Championships on their home track in Whistler so they can have a team relay.
That would make sense. A little bit messy through that labyrinth. All of that's going to cost her time. You can see she looks like she's fighting quite hard here with the sled, but she's getting that nice early entrance into 13.
And a nice exit as well. But a full 1/10 of a second back, looping just a little bit uphill to the finish.
Yeah, just a little bit messy that run. She gets down clean, but a couple of mistakes. You saw she hit quite hard into that curve 15 as well and just tapped. All those little errors that might cost her that second run.
Yeah, she knows it. Caitlin will be joining us tomorrow for the call of the team relay competition. Doubles and singles premiering on the World Cup tomorrow.
The mixed event, yes.
Yeah, the mixed event.
That will be fantastic.
This will also be her commentary debut on the event debut.
I am sure she will do fantastic.
Coach Robert Fegg, never short on the instructions for any athlete. Win, lose, or draw.
I believe Canada will not be taking part in the mix event tomorrow.
That's correct. But the sleds are going home later today with Duncan. The athletes will stick around. Lots of yelling at the top. You know, that means Peter Pence is up there with our first Austrian, Dorothy Schwarz, who finished second in Austria 1-2 finish yesterday in the Nations Cup.
I believe she is the youngest athlete in this field today. She's had some really fantastic times in training. I've been keeping an eye, and she's been putting down some really nice runs.
19 years old, born in Innsbruck, and part of this national team since this year, a rookie.
Nice early entrance into 13 as she goes into the green. And a really nice clean exit there. A little bit late into 15.
You know, along with the American doubles who already won, the most impressive speed we saw during training was the Austrians. No surprise there, 47.209 with the magic that Christian and Georges do with these Austrian sleds. They've become such a powerhouse.
Yeah, really nice run there, putting down a really great time. I suspect that track record will go again later in the race, but such an achievement for such a young athlete. Really nice position there coming out of 13.
47.209, and the final of the top 5 qualifiers now before we get to the seeded group. Barbara Allmeyer, she's 20 years old, another young Austrian. She was born in Hall, one track in Eagles is. Looked really good yesterday, Elsa, in winning that Nations Cup.
Yeah, such a fantastic result for her. On the green already off the start. It's a very steep start ramp here, so it can be a little bit tricky sometimes, but she's already gone into the green over her teammate.
Barbara had part-time World Cup appearances last year, finishing 18th, 19th, and 20th in her races. So, you know, the goals are pretty simple here based on that Nations Cup win. Top 12 is a very strong possibility.
And there will be a lot of competition within this Austrian team over the next couple of years, all quite high on the end there of 12. And just dropping out of 13, but manages it well. Yeah, a lot of competition within this Austrian team over the next couple of years as they are all fighting for those 3 Olympic spots.
3 Olympic spots and another track record, another new leader, and another Austrian out on front. If you figure, and you can't figure anything else, but if you figure that the world champion Schulte and the multiple World Cup winner Egla have 2 spots locked up, then Allmeyer and Schwarz are going to have quite a battle for the next 14 months. But anything can shift, right?
Absolutely. In this sport, absolutely anything can happen. Obviously, we hope that no one gets injured or anything like that, but in terms of rankings, anything can change at the drop of a hat. The margins are so small, so anything could happen between now and the end of qualification on the 12th of January 2026.
Austrians rocking the new uniforms, both their speed suits and their jacket color this year. We turn our attention to the first of the Italians, 23-year-old Verena Hoffa.
So we are now into the seeded group athletes. We've seen those top 5 from yesterday's Nations Cup, and now the next 12 sleds will be our seeded group athletes.
Verena's best result last year, her lone top 10. Actually, she had 2 of them, one in Sigulda and one on her home track in Innsbruck. And maybe Innsbruck will not be the Italians' home track for long.
No, and also the Innsbruck track is changing. They've increased the women's start height. We used to go into curve 5, and now we go into curve 3. So that will be an interesting thing to see next week, how all of these athletes cope with that, because I know that none of the athletes other than the Austrians have had experience on that yet. Just working quite hard to get that early entrance, and again working quite hard to keep that line. All of that will have cost her time through that tricky 12-13 section.
Verena Hoffa crossing here, the red line, 47.533, 5th place behind all but one of the Nations Cup qualifiers. And again, Elsa, we've said this in the past, that those who finish in the top positions in the Nations Cup, they're not the second tier. We generally expect them to contend in the main race the next day.
Absolutely, and particularly as we're in the first race of the season, some of these athletes that did well in the Nations Cup are young athletes that have just come up into the seniors, having come off really strong results in the junior ranks. They haven't yet earned their place in seeded group, and so they're doing fantastic results in the Nations Cup. You can just see she's having to work quite hard to stay off that left wall there. She had to work hard in the 12-13 transition as well, and it's small details, but all of that will have cost her time.
27-year-old Natalie Mogg. She'll never forget what happened last year at the World Championships. In the sprint competition, she ended up on the podium. Not bad for a one-person federation of Switzerland. And tomorrow, Natalie gets a chance to, for the first time, compete in relay as she'll pair up with Australia's Alex Ferlasso. They could be good.
I think we're all very excited to see how this pairing goes. Alex and Mag are both such formidable sliders. They have so much experience. They're such strong athletes. And we haven't got to see them competing in these sorts of events before because they are small nations. So it will be fantastic to see them competing together tomorrow. Natalie
has long been part of a little annex of the German program. So she's been the beneficiary of great coaching.
Ooh, high there on the end of 15.
Third place, the Austrians doing what the Austrians have been doing all week, continuing to hold the top spots. Allmeyer, Schwarz, and Mogg right now. Always a bit of pressure off once you complete that first competitive run of the season. You've spent how many months thinking about it?
Oh, so many. It is nerve-wracking. You want to get a first run down. You want to do well on that first run and set the tone for your season. And lots of athletes, unfortunately, won't have a very good first run. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of nerves. But actually, sometimes having a bad first race almost takes the pressure off for the rest of the season because you know if you can survive a bad race, you can do it again.
Kendia Apariod had what she might consider a somewhat disappointing season last year, ending up in 9th place in the World Cup standings. But she finished strong with a number of top 5 results, including a podium, a 2nd place finish in the now defunct sprint competition. Not away forever, but away at least for this year.
Yes, it is still in the rule book, so there is still opportunity for the sprint race to come back at some stage. But for now, we have moved across to this new mixed discipline.
Kendia, 27 years old. She's been on the World Cup now for a number of years, since 2016, 2017. Her favorite track is Sochi, which is a track we don't anticipate returning to at least for a while, but it's a fun place, beautiful place to go to.
Absolutely, and it's a great fun track. We went there during the Olympic qualification season. Ooh, just hitting early there into curve 11, but managed it well. That will have cost her some time though. Her head just a little bit up on that exit, but looking nice now.
Curve 15.
Ooh, again hitting.
A tap, slight tap, and then crosses over the track to the other side. So 47.338 puts her 0.3 of a second behind. And that, Elsa, looked like a case of these tiny little mistakes adding up.
Absolutely. I think she rolled back a little bit hard on a couple of those exits and just tapped those walls. Particularly on that exit of curve 16, not an issue today, but certainly when we're looking towards the mixed event tomorrow where she's going to have to hit a paddle, she's going to want to make sure she's coming out nice and straight. Here in curve 10. Oh, no, maybe this is 13. Nope, that's curve 10 where she just touched before 11.
The first of 4 Americans is former World Championship medalist Emily Sweeney. Emily spent most of her life in the northeastern USA, now makes her home in northern Italy. She can be as fast as anyone down at the bottom of the track, Elsa, when the lines are clean.
Absolutely, she has so much potential for speed down in the bottom section. Again, another really strong athlete. They work a lot on their starts within the US team as well. They have a fantastic facility out in Lake Placid. In the green here, having a nice run. Quite a big loop there in 10, but a nice line.
Emily, a 2-time Olympian, in fact, just missed out in the 2014 games. She has to put her foot down, quick correction. This is tight, just 100th of a second. Could this turn red here at the end? It does, just from that tiny little mistake. Second place, close, a 1/10 of a second behind, and always lots of character from Caroline down there at the bottom, the team trainer.
Absolutely, great to see Carolyn back in that trainer's box. Just a little tap early into 16 as well, a couple of little mistakes there from Emily. But overall, not a bad run. Hopefully it will be enough to keep her in for the second run of this event. You can see just here, a little bit of skidding, just touching her feet down to keep that control. That will have cost us some time.
And we get a message in on our YouTube channel from MyMini67 saying, good morning, Elsa. Sorry that you're not sliding, but great to hear you as the voice of luge. You'll always be the princess.
Thank you very much. It is great to be back in the commentary box.
Does that mean you're married to William?
I'm not.
Okay.
As far as I'm aware, anyway.
But you'll always be the princess.
I think that's reference to my Instagram handle, Elsa's No Princess.
Among Summer Britcher's 5 all-time World Cup victories, were a couple, I believe, 2 here in Lillehammer, at least 1. She has a little bit of an adventure there with the settle on the sled.
Yeah, let's have a look at the second split. Yeah, she's already gone behind on the second split, and I think that will be as a result of what she did on the start. You want to get a nice clean line to the right-hand side, and she was very much on the left, had to fight quite hard to get that early entrance across into curve 5, and that's cost her time in the top section.
Summer finished a disappointing 13th in the World Cup overall last year. That's after a podium in the opening race and a 5th place in the second race. So looking to atone a bit.
Nice clean line there. Yeah, next season will be good for the Americans. We have 2 races in America. We've got both Salt Lake City and Lake Placid, so they'll be looking for some strong results in the early part of next season.
4th place behind her teammate Emily Sweeney and the 2 qualifying Austrians for Summer Britcher.
Ooh, just a little bit aggressive on the braking there. Not quite making it all the way up that finish.
So what happened here? It looked like it wasn't the perfect line.
No, she was off to the left side, had to fight really hard to come back across to that right and then get that cut into curve 4. That will have cost her some time on the start.
Very nice there, which I believe was the exit of curve 13.
Yeah, nice line out of that one.
Summer heads to the finish area, and we head back to the start for multi-time World Cup winner from Austria, Madeline Egla. Specifically 12 victories in her career on the World Cup, and always one of the fastest starters. Was that a record? I don't believe it was a start record.
No, I think it was just a little bit off.
9.169. Oh, no, I've got different numbers working here. But safe to say she is always one of the fastest at the top.
Absolutely. She's quite a tall athlete. I think she's one of the tallest women on the circuit. Nice long arms make it fantastic for those starts. She's having a really clean run here so far. Let's have a look at this transition. Nice and early into 13, a little bit high when tapping her feet down there.
Wow, she lost a lot of time just from one interval to the next, and this is on an Austrian sled. She ends up 47.302. I'm not sure what happened there. 2,800ths back.
She made a couple of little mistakes through the 12-13 section, which will have cost her some time, but I wonder if there was some mistakes slightly higher up as well, looking at those splits. Getting that early across into 13, but then exit of 13 here, we see she's high. She's dropping out there and having to work hard, skidding a little bit, tapping her feet down. The ice today is quite hard. It is cold here. It is quite dry, and so it is quite skiddy if you get that wrong.
Barbara Allmeyer of Austria continues to lead over American Emily Sweeney. Congratulations to Sweeney on her recent engagement, and congratulations to this woman on her recent marriage. 2-time World Cup winner Alina Bota, formerly Vitola. Latvians really revolutionized the yelling at the start that the Austrians have followed suit on. We've seen that forever in bobsleigh and skeleton.
Absolutely, and I wonder if sometimes we are too quiet on the start. It's sometimes good for the adrenaline and the excitement to have a little bit more noise up there.
24 years old, from Sigulda, also very good starter. She won that indoor pool championship, the start championship last year in Lake Placid. I think Elena won.
I think she may have. Already dropping back here, though. She's lost some time in that top section. Later entrance than you'd like into 13, and it catches her on the exit. But she did really well to stay off that left wall, although it will have lost her some time. 1600s back.
It does cost her time. Will this be 4th place, 7th place? So now we do this almost every time we cover a race, Elsa, and maybe it's too early. The conditions are great. The track workers have done an amazing job, but we're talking some 150 sleds that are going to come down here today between the 3 races. What price does that pay on the track?
I think here we're going to see the track holding up pretty well. We've seen it hold up quite well in training. It is cold, it is not raining, it is dry. There isn't too much sun on the track. It's currently quite nicely in the shade. So I think that we will see the track holding up quite nicely here.
And Bjorn messages in saying it's going to be so fast today. And if your name is Bjorn, I assume you know
yes.
This Lillehammer track. Look at the focus on the eyes of the defending World Cup overall champion, Julia Tobitz. Julia from outside of Altenburg won 6 races last year en route to her 4th overall World Cup title.
Such a strong athlete. Little bit
and not strong usually at the start.
No. We'll expect to see her some clean lines and making it up. She's already come ahead. I don't know what magic she's got in her sled, but she's such a strong athlete.
It's magic in the sled, it's magic in the lines. I mean, this has been her MO since she began in the sport. You don't count her out until the end because she finds time, she extends that time with these incredible lines and speed down at the bottom.
Really nice clean line there, out of curve 13, coming into 14 in this bottom section. A little bit of a wave there in curve 15, but keeping her in the green to the bottom with
track
another
record of 46.935. Coaching staff likes that.
I think that's the first time I've seen anyone go into the 46s on this track.
Hey, you know, next Friday, if you have the start number 1 in the Nations Cup, which you won't, but if you did, you would have a track record.
Well, I am hopeful that I could get a track record in the mix event at some point this season.
Good. Because that's a new track, of course, is what I'm referring to. It's a new start for doubles in women's. Doubles and women's, right?
Yes, doubles and women's will both be going from the new start height in Innsbruck in curve 2. And then over next summer, they will be changing the bottom section of the track. So we will have another new track in the season after.
Smiling Julia. Out in front, her teammate Anna Bierreiter from Berchtesgaden, the 25-year-old Olympic silver medalist with some hard paddles there. Keeps it straight, relatively so, and a 2.63 start time.
Just a little problem it looked like at the end of curve 4 there. Maybe a little bit of looping or a skid. It was quite hard to see, but she's already dropped back. You can see she's really trying to press that form, press that head back, get as much time in these top sections as she can, coming into curve 10.
Anna finished 2nd last year in the World Cup overall, a distant 2nd behind Talbot's.
A later entrance than you'd went into curve 12, looping there a bit, and managing to hold that exit of curve 13, but that will have cost her some time as she's already 3/10 back.
She'll be lucky to be in the top 8 here. And no glaring errors, were there? 47.421.
Definitely a few problems there. She got some slightly not optimal lines on some of those transitions, just some slightly late entrances, early entrances, and all of that will have cost her some time and caused some looping. Really unfortunate for her. Let's hope she can hang on into the second run.
Google Translate time. There's Anna at the start.
I'm sure one of our followers can message in and tell us what she was saying. Again, here you can see she's going into curve 12 later than she'd like.
Next one up from Austria.
You can see it on her face, just not the result she was hoping for.
Right now the standings are Germany, Austria, and USA. We still have 3 remaining among the seeded group, and then we probably won't see anyone challenge for the top 3. Here's Lisa Schulte, one of the wonderful stories of last season. Her victory in Altenburg at the World Championships. Elsa, it was a bit of a surprise, but not a shock. I mean, Lisa had been coming on.
No, she is a strong athlete. She had been on the radar for a while. She hadn't had any major wins that leading up to that race. But
some podiums,
and it wasn't a surprise in terms of coming out of the blue, but certainly not the result anyone had expected, and such a fantastic result for her.
All right, this is the telling split here. This is where we see the trending at the 39 mark. And she's keeping it close.
She is. I think it could be quite close at the bottom here.
This could be third place ahead of Sweeney, and it's second place ahead of both Sweeney and Allmeyer. And again, it's that bottom of the track Austrian magic. Does Hackl put an engine in those sleds? Is that possible? He used to when he won his Olympic golds, right?
This is true. I wish I knew what he was doing to their sleds. A really solid run there for her.
Ooh, harsh words from Hendrik Hensen, who messages in, besides Julia, the Germans are disappointing today. I'm not sure I'd say that, especially with a second place in women's doubles. The Germans were disappointing in 2020 here in Lillehammer, but let's not be so judgmental.
Count them out yet.
And here's another one, Merle Frebel. She's the youngest of these 3 World Cup athletes that have been around for 2 or 3 years, and Merle already has a victory. Big, strong athlete out of Oberhof.
Nice start there, coming in second on the start.
Next to start, Mark Horst.
Coached by Andy Langenhahn back home. Andy, one of the great starters during his career. They have such great starters out of the Thuringian region with Ludwig and Hofner.
They have a really
something in the water, right?
They have a really nice start training facility there in Oberhof as well. I'm sure they're on that a lot in the summers. High on the end of curve 10, they're just skidding out a little bit. That will have cost us some time. But a nice early transition into curve 13 and a clean line out of 13. That's what we got to see. She's already 2/10 back, though. I don't think she's going to be able to make this up in the bottom section.
No way to make any of that up, just a hair maybe. She ends up 31 hundredths. It's such a different animal, doubles and singles, because for starters in the doubles, we saw lots of trouble at 13, much more than in singles. Also, we saw some races where green went to red and back to green. And it looks like once you trend into the red here, you're going to be very hard-pressed to get back unless you keep it very close.
Yeah, doubles is a whole different beast. I have so much respect for the doubles athletes. It is a very challenging discipline, and some of these transitions, the 12-13 section particularly on a double sled, is quite unforgiving, and that's why we get more mistakes happening through there than you would get in the singles.
American Ashley Farquharson was the top-ranked USA slider last year, 6th on the World Cup, including her first ever World Cup podium, a second place in the sprint competition in Lake Placid. Originally from Park City, Utah, and that's still considered her home, although she lives most of the year in Lake Placid.
Quite a tough entrance there into curve 4. I wonder if we'll see that in the second split. There we go. She's gone into the red with that problem. Great to see Ashley coming into her own last season. Such a strong athlete. I think she also had some sled changes last season, and it really worked for her, and hopefully she's going to be able to keep up those good times as we come into the pre-Olympic season.
Emily Sweeney was very fast on the bottom half of the track, and Farquharson only 500ths back now, so this could be a top 4.
A little bit late there into 13, and it's just biting her on the exit.
She's given it away. I jinxed this curve 13 thing because we haven't seen a lot of problems in this race. But what does that cost her? That cost her, basically, if you want to put a number on it, about 0.3 of a second from just the tap outside of curve 13, the exit.
Yeah, she just got that entrance a little bit late into curve 13, and that caused her to loop a little bit, and it was just too much of a challenge to save on that exit. Although we haven't seen many problems in this race, we did see a lot of people having problems there yesterday in the Nations Cup, and we have seen people having problems there throughout the training week, just high on that end as she looped and just getting that left wall. She did really well to control it and not to hit the right wall after.
And to keep her head way back.
Absolutely.
To have confidence in her knowledge of the track. Always leads the league in glitter on the face, Ashley Farquharson. Now we move to the rest of the qualifying group, headlined by Trinity Ellis of Canada, the second of three from Team Canada. Trinity's best result last year was an 11th place finish in Lake Placid. She had a disappointing 16th in the World Cup on her home track in Whistler.
I'm sure she will be looking to improve on that as we go to the World Championships this year in Whistler. This season in Whistler in early of next year.
Trinity, only 22 years old, but if I'm not mistaken, her first World Cup appearance, she may have been 17.
Yeah, we saw quite a young group of Canadians coming through a few years ago as the Canadian team was starting to rebuild. Really late entrance there into curve 12, but manages it well, and a nice exit there of curve 13. Yeah, we saw quite a few young Canadians coming through a few years ago, and now they're still very young, still in their early 20s, but with all this experience under their belts as they're coming in towards these senior seasons.
16th place for Trinity Ellis. The goal for all of the remaining 11 or so in this field will be really maybe to crack the top 15. This is the qualifying group in the bottom half of the qualifying group from yesterday's Nations Cup.
Definitely a good day for these athletes. The ice seems to be maintaining quite well. As we go into the later part of the season and we get some warmer ice, it's going to be a real struggle for these back athletes to beat the people that started at the front of the field. But luckily today the ice does seem to be holding up, and so they still have a good shot.
Here's the lone Romanian in today's women's singles race, Diana Buzătoiu. Is that how?
Buzătoiu.
Buzătoiu, thank you. And Romania, of course, will take part tomorrow in the mixed team relay, and she will almost undoubtedly slide with Valentine Cretu, because I think Eddie is not competing.
Yeah, unfortunately Eddie was out injured this week after an injury in the training, so she will be sliding with Valley tomorrow. We wish Eddie a speedy recovery. Cori here, second season on the Senior World Cup. She struggled a little bit last season to find her consistency with races, certainly having some problems on some of the tracks as she came through to these senior rankings. She's putting together a nice line here so far. Late entrance there into 13 and a big loop, and problems there. Managing to stay on the sled, that could have been worse. She will be disappointed with this run though.
The Romanian finishes, gets a time, 48.565. Only one sled earlier today in the doubles competition failed to make it across the finish. And I think the fact that there is an uphill to the finish, Elsa, but it's not a steep uphill, most of these sleds can get away with a crash out of 13 and still carry that sled across the finish line.
Yeah,
not all, but
the only problem is if you flip in 14, then that's she did really well to stay on the sled here. Big skid here out of curve 13. Hopefully she hasn't hurt her leg with that hit of the wall there. She will be disappointed with this result. Unfortunately, she has had some struggles in training with some inconsistency, and it's just reflected here. But she will have an opportunity to get back on the sled tomorrow in that mixed event with Valentine, and hopefully can put down a run that she is happy with.
A moment ago, we talked about Canadian Trinity Ellis beginning on the World Cup at a young age. This woman, Yuliana Tonitska, was thrown to the wolves by the Ukrainian program at age 16. I think she was 16 at her first World Cup race. She's now 21 years old.
And notoriously won the Junior World Championships on Bludenz a couple of years ago, which was a fantastic result for her. I was fortunate enough to train with Ukraine in the early part of the pre-season, and she is such a formidable athlete. She does work very hard, and we'll be hoping for some good results this season.
And we've seen it from Elena, we've seen it from Anton and Monzi. So is it safe to say the only thing really standing in the way from Ukraine and top 10 results regularly is just funding and equipment?
Yes, I think that would be quite fair to say. They've put a lot of time into their sliders this season, a lot of time in the track in the early part of the pre-season. She's putting down a nice run here. The Ukrainians were the first athletes on this track at the beginning of pre-season, so they've had a lot of time here. But we expect to see these athletes that are coming down now to be in the lower part of the rankings. They are the athletes that qualified through the Nations Cup. But she seems quite happy with that result, so let's hope she can hang in there and get her second run.
And now we pay attention to what we call in sport the bubble. It's the Romanian in 20th place right now. And everyone else is looking to crack the top 20. That will at least put them in a position for a second run.
From Italy, next photo, we have Sandra Robacha.
One message comes in saying, I think this is the year that the American team will do very well. That remains to be seen. We have one American in 4th place in this race. And of course, they won earlier in the women's doubles. Now on course, Sandra Robacher. And Sandra, with one World Cup victory many years ago, certainly has a chance to crack the top 20. In the very early going, she was in the green. Now she falls 300ths behind.
Another athlete that will be looking forward to getting a new home track as this Italian track is finished. Still, home track is in Austria for now, though. Putting together a nice run. We expect to see her already in the red, given that these are the athletes that qualified through Nations Cup. Quite late entrance there into 12, nice and early into 13, and a nice exit there. Clean out of 13 is what we want to see.
Good aerodynamic profile. Sandra has really struggled with injuries throughout most of the last 5 or 6 years. So it just, you losers, you stay with it. You can't walk away. I think she had shoulder injuries, and she's had a whole slew of them.
Yeah, she's had a string of surgeries. She only did the first half of last winter because then she had to go back to Italy for another surgery. She seems to be in good form this year, and hopefully will be able to maintain that. Hopefully these problems won't come back for her this year. She is one of the older athletes on the circuit now, 1995, and this sport does certainly take a toll on the body. But hopefully we'll be able to see her maintaining that really great physical form throughout the winter.
The third of the Canadians is Caroline Maxwell, 24 years old. She's out of Calgary. It's a dying breed, unfortunately, are the athletes emerging out of Calgary. I think the doubles men as well. We miss Calgary so much.
It was such a fun track to slide, but they do still have the start ramp there. So the athletes out of Calgary were able to get time on that start ramp in Calgary over the
indoor
summer.
one,
yes.
The Wintersport facility, right. Carolyn has been on the World Cup team for a number of years, but off and on. She takes time off. I'm not sure if it's injuries or she's a part-time student as well, I know.
Yeah, I think studying is the reason that she's been off and on. Looking nice so far here. Nice early entrance into curve 13. And a clean line into 14.
Right, it seems like a hard exit of 13, but a hard exit maybe is the straight exit when you do that little bump.
Yeah, I think it's the way the track is built. Everyone's having a slight little bump on the end of 13, but it doesn't seem to be causing issues for too many athletes as she comes down in 21st, just missing out on that spot in the second run.
It's the Ukrainian Tanitska sitting in 20th place right now and watching the remainder of the sleds with the greatest interest.
Nice clean line there that we saw in a really good position there coming out of 13. Really pressing her head back. Obviously for all these athletes from Canada, a little skid there into 16. All these athletes from Canada will be looking forward to getting back to Whistler for the World Championships coming next year.
You get 2 weeks there because prior to every World Championships there's a training week. So that will be nice for them to be home. Caroline Maxwell done for the day, and Canada will not compete tomorrow in the mixed relay, unfortunately. Now here is Poland's Klaudia Domalacka, 24 years old.
Our lone Polish athlete, I think, that we've seen this week.
Right, but they will have full relay teams throughout the season at the 6 stops where there are team relays and the World Championships.
As well as both singles and doubles mixed
relay, yeah.
Which is fantastic.
Three places, Oberhof, here,
Korea,
and Pyeongchang,
and
the World Championships.
Putting together a nice run here so far. Poland in a long-term partnership with the Germans, helping them out with coaching and things like that.
Claudia had one top 20 last year, a 19th place on Oberhof, which she considers her favorite track.
She had a little bit of a loop there in 13 and quite a rough transition into curve 15, but she's managing it really well, managing to stay off those walls.
Unfortunately, another one-run day for this athlete. As you hear the English public address announcer in the background telling us, English speaking here in Norway, that it's not enough.
Just outside the time that she would have needed.
Well, of the remaining competitors, and we have 7 left in run number 2, we've only got a few that have a chance at the top 20, in my opinion. The Latvian could, the young American maybe outside chance, probably not. But this athlete, I would figure to move into the top 20. Tova Koala, she's a veteran now. This is her home track. What do you think?
If she has a good run, I definitely think it's possible. She's had, the Swedish athletes have had some problems in training this week because the ice has been very different to what they're used to here. This track is so normally built for bobsled, it's not normally on racing condition ice, and suddenly they've come back to the track that was their home, and it's built very different because it's built for a World Cup. But she's putting together a nice run here. We often see really good form from Tova as she really presses that head back, just looking up a little bit to get those lines.
She has to keep it within 7/10 of the lead, and here's the crux of the course. Not bad for Tova.
A little skid on the end there.
I think she will crack the top 20. Unless there's a major problem down here, Tova Kovala does not. She loses considerable time down at the bottom, 22nd place. She went from a deficiency of 47 back to 76 back just in those last 2 intervals.
It was her curve 15. You see she looped curve 15 a lot. Those big corners down at the bottom, you can lose a lot of time there. She will be disappointed with that. You saw there's a skid coming out of 13. She did well to keep it off the wall, but that skid will have cost her time, and then the big looping through curve 15. Just not quite enough for her today.
We will see Tova tomorrow, presumably with her brother Svante in the mixed team singles, although there are 2 Swedish competitors entered into tomorrow's race.
Yes, so I believe she will be with Svante, and then Johanna will be with Rasmus. It's their second pairing, which is great to see from Sweden.
2 siblings, a cousin, and then a friend from the same area.
Yeah.
The same island. China brought a big team this year.
Yes, we've seen a full field here from China. The only thing we're missing is a women's doubles, because I believe their women's doubles pilot had broke her leg in the pre-season training out in China. So we wish her a speedy recovery and look forward to seeing her in the later part of the season.
Hu Lian Hu raced last year in the second half of the season. She had one very nice 17th place finish, a top 20 in Altenburg.
Julianne has really developed as a slider over the last few years. She gets some really clean lines on lots of these tracks and really great form as well. It's exciting to see what she's going to do over the next few years, because she's certainly developed a later entrance than you'd like into curve 13 there, and that's just caught her on the end and causing problems. But she manages it reasonably well, but it will have lost her some time. This is a little bit more reflective of what we were seeing in the Nations Cup yesterday. Quite a few athletes having problems in that 12, in that 13 transition, and it's just catching them in the straight.
Well, while we have a minute, and we have another Latvian, another Chinese competitor, 2 from Ukraine, 1 from the United States, let's talk a little bit about WADA. Congratulations on your appointment.
Thank you very
what
much.
does all of this entail?
So I am standing to be one on the Athlete Council for the World Anti-Doping Agency. So the purpose of the Athlete Council is to improve the way that WADA serves the athletes. And it's not just luge athletes, it's globally the way that we serve athletes from Olympic sports, but also from non-Olympic sports that are signed up to follow the WADA guidance and be regulated by WADA. So there is a vote happening on the 10th to the 12th of December, so coming up in just over a week's time, where all sports that are legislated by WADA will be able to vote for who they would like to see on the Athlete Commission. And I'm hoping to be able to stand and represent small sports, minority sports like luge and winter sports, and make sure that our voice is heard amongst the more mainstream sports.
And not that we'll ever even think of pointing fingers, but it's not as if luge hasn't had its incidents or its suspicions over the years.
Yeah, I think we have unfortunately been one of many sports that has had challenges over the last few years. WADA is doing a lot of work to try to develop. Ooh, big skid there going into curve 12 and a late entrance into 13. Just catching her on the end of 13 there.
Zana Kaluma, who competes in singles and doubles at some events. She will not make the top 20 either. She was one of the remaining few who I believe had an outside chance. 25th place. So still sitting on the bubble, Juliana Tinitska in 20th place. 0.7 of a second out of the lead. So that's the mark we'll watch. Anyone? Anyone? Elena? Emma?
I think it unlikely any of these girls will, based off their Nations Cup rankings, but as we know in luge, anything can happen, and it is race day. And the ice does appear to be holding up really quite well, so well done to the track crew for that. Not quite getting the cut you'd want there into curve 4, and then just problems here as she had those issues in the 12-13 transition. And I suspect tomorrow in the mixed event we will see athletes having problems in that section again, as we will get to see some of the athletes that are lower ranked and haven't made it into today's races.
Taishan Wang, on paper, will not make it. Her best result ever, twice last year on the World Cup, 21st place. So she has to improve one on that.
Quite young. I believe 2 of their men and 2 of their women are actually still juniors. So getting this experience on the World Cup is so valuable for these athletes as they build their team for the future.
Sled seems noticeably louder than a lot of the ones.
You saw she had a skid there into 12, really looping 13 here, but managed to hold that really nicely on the exit. I wonder if her steels are particularly sharp to give her that grip. You saw she was able to make big corrections there at 13, and that will be making the sled louder as well as she's cutting ice.
Norbert Huber back home in White Bear Lake, Minnesota, if you're watching this morning, Tony. A lot of Ukrainian flags among our chat group here on YouTube.
Excellent. We love to see that.
And 2 of the final 3 coming up. The Olenas will be sandwiched around American Emma Eriksson to conclude run number 1. Back in the day, they were very good at singles and doubles. Now it's a specialized skill. Specialized sport. 0.5 of a second back.
Absolutely, but she is such a strong athlete. Big loop here in 13, but manages it well on the exit. And you can just hear her skidding there in 14. That will have cost her some time.
Top 7 result earlier today for Olena with Alexandra Mock. She will not make run number 2.
The thing we do see with athletes like Alina is that as she's focusing more on the double, her singles results haven't been quite as strong as prior to doing that doubles. But still producing some fantastic results out here. Good
view of the spikes. It's just, don't shake hands with a luger when they cross the finish line, please.
Fist bump. It's much safer.
Yeah.
Really nice form there out of curve 13, really pressing her head back.
This guy's been coaching the Ukrainian program for at least 40 years.
It's great to see some of these coaches sticking around. And she seems quite happy.
We'll see Alina tomorrow in the mixed event. Now Emma Eriksson, not a World Cup debut, I don't believe. I'll check the results from last year, but Emma, first year as a full-time World Cup athlete, 21-year-old, originally from Wisconsin. Big problems at the start. What happened there, Elsa?
She hit the right wall. That start ramp is not flat. It does pull you to the right. Big hit there on the left wall and then the right wall. I have done that crash myself in the past, and it is painful. So let's hope that she's okay and able to get down safely for the rest of this run. At this point, she's lost the time. She's not going to make it.
What's your mindset?
At this point, all she wants is now to get down, and she's probably quite shaken by that hit. It looked like quite a hard hit, so let's hope she can just keep this safe and get to the finish. Really late there into curve 12, but manages the early entrance into the 13. Hopefully she can make it out clean. Oh, more problems here.
I mean, you're not inside this athlete's head, but could it be nerves first race of the season? Could it just have been a technical mistake?
First race of the season. Oh, she's holding her arms there. I hope she's okay. First race of the season, there's a lot of pressure. She's also a young athlete. She hasn't got a huge amount of World Cup experience. I think she's had some inconsistency in training as well. Her results have been quite up and down in the training week. So I don't think it's been unusual for her to have problems on this track. But you can see she just gets this right wall off the start.
Was that the hard settle, the fact that she got on that sled so, seemed like a big bump?
So that start ramp does pull you slightly to the right. You could also see she didn't look like she was going off straight when she did her pull initially. It's quite hard when the ice is hard because you don't get grooves. On softer ice, grooves will develop from the higher ranked athletes that you can then follow and go in a nice straight line off the start. When the ice is hard like this, you don't have the grooves, you really have to pull straight, and it looked like she did pull a little bit to the right.
Final sled now, 30th starter Alina Shmaha, also from Ukraine. 24 years old, from Lviv, which is an area that has produced a lot of the luge athletes from Ukraine.
I believe she cut back on the amount of sliding she was doing the last couple of years. We didn't see her in quite so many races, so it's good to see her back here doing more races and more consistently sliding.
That tends to happen sometimes as the Olympics are lurking in the not too distant future.
Late entrance there into 13. Will she manage this loop? Did really well to stay off that wall. Ooh, hitting there, big loop into curve 15. And that's going to have cost her time.
Skidding uphill across the finish line in a time of 48.659, 29th out of the 30 that went here. Only Emma Eriksson right before her had a slower time.
I think she did still beat her Nations Cup time though, so
okay,
that's a result for her.
And they will spend the next 20 minutes or so doing some track prep to get this thing perfect for run number 2.
Yeah, you see she was really high there on the end of 13, but managed that really nicely, staying clean into 14.
Picturesque finish curve. Not a lot of spectators so far. We expected a few more.
It's the Christmas market this weekend.
Yeah, so
everyone is
buy
there.
Your presents. Once you've checked off that list, you can show up and watch them luge.
So these last 10 athletes we unfortunately won't be seeing in the second run.
But these we will, and this will be a nice little battle in run number 2. Tobitz firmly planting herself where you expect to see her on top. The world champion behind her. The qualifier, Allmeyer in 4th. Then American Sweeney. Another qualifier, Schwartz. And Summer Britcher, a former winner on this track, rounds out the top 6. A look at all of the top 20. Tanitska will lead the way. Caitlin Nash qualifies for Canada, as well as Trinity Ellis. So Carolyn Maxwell just misses out by about 0.05 of a second, and Tova Koala with a slow bottom part of the track, a little disappointment for the local Swedish contingent here. What do you expect to see here in run number 2, Elsa?
As we've seen already, there's so many things that can happen on this track. I expect we'll see the Austrians staying in the top as well as Julia. Such a strong slider, such a consistent slider, but really anything can happen. And I think certainly within the sort of 4th to 8th rankings, there's going to be a lot of movement.
All right, thanks, Elsa. Our live coverage of run number 2 resumes at 13 minutes past the hour. That's 12:13 local time. Join us for run number 2 then.